Hello everyone, I'm Mrs. Rekha Essen, Assistant Professor of English from Government First Grade College, Kavur, Mangalore. Today's session is on Grammar Comprehension passage. This has been prescribed for BBA Sem 4 of Mangalore University. Now we are in the last session, 48. In the previous 3 sessions, we studied the skills to acquire, what are the strategies to be used in order to answer the questions as soon as possible in an effective manner, and now the proficiency we can acquire in studying English, in attending the comprehension passage, in writing the comprehension passage, and so on. Now, we are going to study the types of questions that may be asked for the given comprehension passage. First type is literal questions or information seeking questions. Literal questions or information seeking questions are the ones where the student can find the answer directly. Your eyes move directly to the answer. The task of the student is to understand the information sought and locate the answer from the passage. You need not to think about the answer. You'll find the answer in the passage. The skill tested in such questions is the ability to extract relevant information. The second type is inferential questions. In an inferential comprehension question, the reader infers, meaning that goes beyond explicitly stated information. Inferential questions are the ones where the text does not actually tell us, but we can work out the answer by considering the hints and clues in the text in the light of our own knowledge and experience. You don't find the direct answer in the passage. Instead, with your knowledge or the hints or the clues provided, you need to think about the question and answer. Such type of questions test the skills of analysis and reasoning. The third type is locating a specific word. The student might have learned the synonyms, antonyms, or one-word substitutes in the earlier classes. Questions can be asked wherein the student can be asked to locate a specific word from the passage. For example, the question could be, which word in the passage means to go on to someone's land or enter their building without permission? The answer trespass will be in the passage and the student has to locate the answer. Many times a student can understand the meaning of the word contextually even if the particular word is not a part of his or her vocabulary. The skills tested here is vocabulary and scanning for information. With your own knowledge, with your reading, you can easily find out the word, you can easily locate the word for the question asked. The fourth type is identifying the central theme and suggesting a suitable title. It is a very interesting part of the questions where a student has to identify the central theme and suggest a suitable title to a given comprehension is possible only when the student has gained an overall understanding of the passage. It puts to test the creative skill of the student. There are certain questions or the part of the questions where you have to combine the two elements or two sentences or two pieces of information. This is the last type, combining two elements or pieces of information. Such question seeks two pieces of information. For example, the given passage may list out the various uses of global positioning system, and the question could be mention any two uses of GPS. Here are some guidelines to students to answer questions at the end of the comprehension passage. When you take a comprehension passage in hand, read the passage carefully once. After reading it carefully, read a question set on the passage. Try to correlate the questions and the passage that you have already read once. Read the passage for second time, keeping in mind the questions that you have read already before going through the passage. Go through the questions once. Make a mental note of the sentences, phrases, and words which contain the answer to the questions. Look for information questions, the hints, the clues to the answer. The answers must be to the point, clear, and concise. While going through the passage, find new and interesting words. Try to understand their meaning contextually. If the given question is for 1 mark, the answer should be in a word, in a phrase, or in a sentence. If the question is for 2 marks, the answer should be in 2 or 3 sentences. While going through the passage, try to get an overall idea of the passage. Here is the sample given, a descriptive comprehension passage. I'll read out the passage and even the questions are given at the end. Let's figure it out. First, I'm going to read out the passage. Listen carefully so that you can answer the questions as soon as possible and effectively. Primitive man was probably more concerned with fire as a source of warmth and as a means of cooking food than as a source of light. While going through these lines, you find primitive man is more concerned with fire as a source of warmth and a means of cooking food rather than a source of light. So you can underline source of warmth, cooking food, and source of light because you may be asked questions later. Before he discovered less laborious ways of making fire, he had to preserve it, and whenever he went on a journey, he carried a firebrand with him. On a journey, he carried a firebrand. You can underline it. You may find the question later. His discovery that the firebrand from which the torch may very well have developed could be used for illumination was probably incidental to the primary purpose of preserving a flame. underline the word illumination because it is worth to listen. The firebrand later developed into a torch. Underline it. Now let's move further. Lamps too probably developed by accident. Lamps developed by accident. Underline. It is not intentionally discovered. By accident it was developed. Early man may have had his first conception of a lamp while watching a twig or fiber burning in the molten fat dropped from a roasting carcass. All he had to do was to fashion a vessel to contain fat and float a lighted reed in it. How he has developed the lamp. You may find the question later, so underline it. Such lamps, which were made of hollowed stones or seashells, have persisted in identical form up to quite recent times. You may find the question how the lamps were developed, how it was developed earlier, and how this firebrand was given a shape later. So let's find out the questions. Answer the following questions in a word, phrase or sentence as required. So while going through the passage, we have underlined certain words, certain lines. Based on that, here are the questions. What are the uses of fire for the primitive man? Uses of fire, the source of warmth, source of cooking food, and more than giving concern as a source of light. What did the primitive man carry on his journey? Firebrand. Whether the discovery of fire was intentional, we have underlined it as accidental. So the discovery of fire was accidental, not intentional. So in this way, you can find your answers if you underline it while going through the passage. Find an antonyms for the word darkness. We have underlined while going through the passage illumination. The opposite of darkness or the antonyms of darkness is illumination. Here are the questions which carries 2 marks. And you need to combine few sentences in order to answer the question. And we have underlined it in the passage. So go through the passage and answer it by yourself. Suggested title: Discovery of fire or Primitive Man's Fire. You can write it as a title. So in this way, you can answer the questions as soon as possible in a very effective manner. With this, I conclude the session, comprehension passage. If you would like to read further, you can go to the reference material. Have a good day. Thank you and all.